What's going on there, Twitch and YouTube world, and welcome to March's edition of Loadouts to help you win games. Now, I'm going to say two important things before we dive into this video, and the first is that there hasn't been a lot of official changes when it comes to the weapon meta, so most of the weapons are still the same from some of my prior videos. And second, there has been a huge shakeup in the limb meta. So here towards the end of the video, I will cover the different limb combinations, and some recommendations that I think are going to help you win some games. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and see what's going down in the world of weaponry. First and foremost, we have my favorite tried and true, the Tacoma and Kestrel. Now, one thing I do want to say is that the devs have made many changes to the attachments that are nowhere to be found in the patch notes. And I have a big problem with that, because one thing that Gunzilla seems to suck at on a consistent basis is communication. And knowing information like this is what's really going to drive the community's interest and start wanting, to build the meta guns and get more creative with how they're putting things together. I shouldn't have to shoot at somebody, feel like my gun's not working like it used to, for me to realize you changed something in the game. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Tacoma. We have the Tacoma Heavy Barrel, noise suppressor for the Tacoma drum mag, and the Tacoma Light Grip. With some of the changes, the stock has kind of lost some of its value, as well as a few of the tactical items. So I went ahead and decided that, calming down that horizontal noise that you get from just the vast fire rate the weapon offers you, that you're going to get better results. And in return, it has made the gun an absolute laser beam. And it is without a doubt the best SMG in the game. Without a doubt, number one. And it is going to be probably one of the primary tools in most of your loadouts. Another thing that has changed is, of course, my Kestrel build. The devs decided that the enhanced compensator apparently doesn't need to give you extra range, and they nerfed it. And unfortunately, it has resulted in missing way more shots. So no matter what attachment you decide to put on your sniper rifle, you are going to notice that you are spot on your target, and for some reason, it's just not hitting the same. And I do think that was intentional, because, well, the only weapon that really gave PC players, or excuse me, mouse and keyboard players, an edge was sniping. So they took off the range, and now they all pretty much perform the same. So we have, of course, along with the noise suppressor, added our 2.5 to 4x scope, the Kestrel light stock, and the Kestrel light grip. It's still my number one weapon, which is why this is my number one loadout. Tried and true, and it will get you through to the finish line. Next up, we have my quick scope variant, and I did want to throw in at least one more SMG, since the Tacoma's light years ahead of the rest of the competition. And this is what I am running at the moment. We have the Kochi Heavy Grip, Kochi Compact Flashlight, the Kochi Tactical Flash Hider, and the Kochi Heavy Barrel. Now, as I talked about in my prior videos where I had the Kochi build, this is going to focus on the accuracy. With so much noise from the weapon and just recoil, just real shaky whenever you're shooting at people, it kind of nerfs the high amounts of damage that the weapon puts out. And we want to be able to have any bullet that's within the player's hurt box hit the target. So maxing out the accuracy is the intention here, and it is still an extremely strong gun. I would say if you were anywhere from 7 or less meters, this does have the chance to outperform the Tacoma, but anything greater than that, the Tacoma is going to win every single time. And excuse me, I might have said meters, but I meant feet, right? 7 feet and under, Kochi's your man. Anything over that, it is going to be the Tacoma all day, every day. Now, moving forward, we have the quick scope variant of the Kestrel build. So this is going to be a 1.4x traded out for the 2.4 to 4x. Everything else is going to be exactly the same. And just to run that by folks, in case you missed it, it is going to be the noise suppressor for the Kestrel flashlight, and the Kestrel light grip. Take it out for a spin. I have a lot of fun with this. And one thing I do want to recommend is if there's anything you would like to switch around that will boost the mobility and handling of this rifle, it is going to honestly just improve its usability and versatility. So play around a little bit. I don't know if this one's going to really be a locked in recommendation, but this is what's working for me at this time. Moving forward to the third loadout, and it of course is going to include the Tacoma one last time. I'm going to quickly throw that up on the screen. Heavy barrel, noise suppressor, drum mag, light grip, but we're not going to spend a lot of time going back over a gun we've broken down, and instead introduce you to the Terracon Maniac. If you are using a controller, this gun is insane. If you take a look at the description here, it is going to talk about basically this gun having an insane RPM, which is rounds per minute, faster fire rate essentially. And the consequence or trade-off to this is you have no stock. But the second thing it also talks about is its insane headshot capability, as it does have a boosted multiplier. So what's working for me on this particular weapon is the Terracon drum mag, the flashlight, which adds some recoil and accuracy, the stabilizer, which does the same, and the noise suppressor for just that added advantage of recoil control and silencing up the gun a little bit to keep you off of the map and noticed by other players around you. Again, it's already an absolute laser beam, but I do not think it necessarily outperforms the M4 if you're on mouse and keyboard. I think this is more of a controller weapon overall, but there are a lot of really top tier players. You're gonna see a lot of Merc guys using this particular weapon, and that's who I personally got the build from. Take it for a spin and see if you win. On to the next build. This is something that I think is really important. I played some games with a Twitch streamer who goes by the name of Yo, That's KB. Shout out to you, my man. And we're always kind of theory crafting on what works and what doesn't work. And again, with a lot of the ninja changes to adjustments, in particular the muzzles, we wanted to switch things up. And this is a quick and reactive. It's kind of higher in that mobility category, and gives you just a better, more reactive weapon from using the light stock. And you kind of have everything else pretty much the same except the muzzle. So M4 light stock, M4 heavy barrel, and the M4 drum mag. And I do think that the current recommendation for me is probably going to be the noise suppressor. So I think this is a really, really efficient build, and you'll notice that my range actually increased when I swapped that attachment out. So you got to remember that if we go back to the enhanced compensator, this is what used to give you that range, and it no longer does. But it does give you a major reduction in vertical and horizontal recoil. And if we were to go to the noise suppressor, we get the suppressed sound and literally, right, identical vertical and horizontal recoil. So I don't understand why there's a nerf on the enhanced compensator. I don't know if that's a bug that the devs intended, but if you take a look here, why would you use this, right? You get 15 and 10, whereas if you use the noise suppressor, you get 15 and 15 and the benefit of having suppressed sound. So this is going to be my number one M4 build for you right now. And there are some players who like to go ahead and maybe swap out the muzzle entirely and put on the light grip to improve the handling of this weapon. It's already a laser. It's still one of the highest damaging weapons in the game. Do I think it's better than the Terracon? Yes, especially if you're on mouse and keyboard. If you're already using this, keep it. Let's make some adjustments there to how you might have had the gun set up previously. And I know some folks out there using the enhanced compensator may not be aware that things got changed. switch it up. Before we wrap things up, we're going to go on to our last build, and it is going to be the Influencer. Shotguns are still king, ladies and gentlemen, and the Flenser has been dethroned. The top shotgun is hands down the Influencer. The Flenser is still a great shotgun. It just doesn't have the consistency that this has. And with the devs tuning aim assist back to its original state, you want a laser beam shotgun, and this is what's going to give it to you. We're using the heavy stock, the heavy barrel, the Influencer flashlight, and the stabilizing foregrip. Now, if you pay attention down below, you'll see that we have major increases on the recoil and accuracy for this weapon. It's kind of like the sniper rifle of shotguns at the moment, and that's why it's so broken. I do think it is treading the edge of, does it need a nerf? And I think the answer is yes, especially if the devs are going to continue to head in the direction that they're headed, which is catering to folks of the controller crowd. Now, one thing to consider is the devs have been talking about making a nerf to PC controller players, which I'm not really in agreement with. I don't think you should try and nerf, the platform. I think you need to focus on the input. So, food for thought there, Gunzilla. Now, that is going to be your top loadouts to help you some win games here in March. Let's talk about limbs. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the whole new ball game out there. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is one of my fan favorites, and it is going to be Paralyzer Phosphor Fury. I think Paralyzer is still the, most reliable lockdown limb in the game. It's a counter to Recon. And, let's just call it what it is. It's useful. It's all around useful. The Phosphor Fury is in a really great spot, especially if you're capable of getting it to that 100% charge. Even if you don't charge it to 100%, that 60% is enough for you to be able to break shields. Now, one of the things that I've been doing, if you take a look at my first loadout, is actually pairing this with the hookshot. If you're going to be running a vertical build of any sort, hookshot Phosphor Fury is a very, very reliable combination. And I probably actually use that more than Paralyzer. Now, on that same note, I think Paralyzer, if you are on mouse and keyboard, is potentially one of the best limbs to double up on. You're going to see on my M4 build, I'm running double Paralyzer because, again, the data is extremely helpful. The ability to lock down your opponent is extremely helpful. And Recon is still a problem. So keep yourself off other folks' radar and be able to combat that situation. Pair that up with something like the Limb Accelerator to keep those cooldowns as low as possible, and you can continue to have this off cooldown as, pretty often. I think it's only about 45 seconds or so. So you can pop a Paralyzer, run around, let it pulse for a while, and hopefully get one of those stuns off, and then rinse and repeat onto the second one. And by the time the second one has finished ticking down, your first one only has about 10 or 15 seconds left. Now, pair that with something like the Roadrunners, and you are going to have a really good time. I actually do think right now the Roadrunners are edging past Leapers, and I would like to see the developers show Leapers a little bit more love, especially with the jetpack buff / nerf. Now, with the way jetpacks are in the game currently, you have a limit of fuel before you run out and fall straight down to the ground. The benefit, though, the trade-off is you now can fly vertically. Very similar, if any of you were playing the game back in early October, for example, you used to be able to swoop down and then use that momentum to fly yourself upward. Not only can you do that again, but now it's twice as strong. So you could be halfway, let's say this is Trump Tower, you could fly in, be at the halfway point, dip down, and literally fly all the way to the top. This is going to be huge for a lot of you who are looking to counterplay the trip mines, which are a huge problem in the game right now. We all know you can't go up any ropes, you can't go up any cranes, you could barely go through any doorways. So using that mobility to get yourself to higher heights is going to be a game changer. So use it or lose it, in my opinion, because the jetpack technique is going to be something you have to get yourself used to. You think this was a bad change for the jetpack? Let me know down in the chat. But I think that really it just is going to take a little bit of an adjustment period, and you're going to find that it is probably one of the best things the devs have done in a very, very long time. I don't have much to tell you about leapers. They're great, use them, but I do have some news for you on the Roadrunners. And I actually grabbed my notepad here so I could make sure these numbers are accurate. I did some testing in the range, and here's the results. Purple Roadrunners are 15 seconds uptime, 23 seconds on recovery when using a limb accelerator. Without the limb accelerator, it will be 30 seconds. Blue Roadrunners are 15 seconds uptime with 25 seconds to recover. And without a limb accelerator, it will be 33 seconds. And the white Roadrunners are 15 seconds uptime, but have a 30-second timer to recover. And without limb accelerator will be a 39-second to recover. So the reason this is really important is because A, the devs did not communicate this change, similar to the enhanced compensator and several other attachments, but it is going to really let me rephrase that. It's really going to change how you approach your loadouts, because obviously with the purple Roadrunners being the clear winner or the best option, things are going to get a little bit more expensive. You're going to notice on almost every loadout that I have on my screen right now, we're no longer running a pistol. And to be quite honest with you, I just don't think spending money on a pistol is even worth it. The default 227 is extremely reliable. If you hit your headshots, every pistol in the game is going to be powerful. So save yourself a couple bucks, don't buy a pistol, and put that extra cost difference into, again, the purple Roadrunners, because they have been buffed and all of the other lower tier colors have been nerfed. So some food for thought if you did not know those changes have been made. Before I get into a couple more of the arms here in just a second or two, I do want to talk about the limb accelerator. I actually would say it's kind of, pacing a little far ahead of the soldier backpack. The reason why is a lot of these limbs right now are very, very strong, and you want to have as much uptime as possible. If we think about, just a week and a half ago, the reason Ripper was so broken, not just because the devs clearly broke it, but because Limb Accelerator was able to cut those things down, and you had these things off cooldown every 10 to 15 seconds, and that's going to be a big game changer. Speaking of Ripper, thank you, Gunzilla. You finally got the message, and it is no longer the king of limbs. And you may have noticed in virtually every loadout I've showed you on my screen, I am not currently running it. You have probably about a 50-50 chance at actually hitting your target, and you need to be dead on. I mean, straight as an arrow, or you are likely to miss. But it's still very capable limb, because you will more than likely take an arm, take a set of legs, take a gun. Something is going to get chopped off your opponent, and that will allow you to put the fight in your favor. However, I told you this in my last video, it is very escapable. As soon as somebody loses something, the first thing they're going to do is pop their Roadrunners and get the hell out of that situation, and you wasted a cooldown on the Ripper. If you double up on it, you may have a chance to, if you miss or if you hit the rip, swing again and go for the second rip, and that may get you the shield break completely or even potentially the knock. But I will be honest, 9 times out of 10, it's just not happening. And I'm actually really happy to say that. I'm kind of frustrated. It took the devs 4 months to fix this particular limb, but it scares me because I'm worried that we're going to have to wait another 4 months to see anything being done about the trip mines. While we're on the topic of trip mines, and I do have a couple of them up on my screen, let's talk about it. It is the most broken limb in the game. It's kind of in that category of use it or lose it. And I am talking about your game because everyone's going to be running these things, right? They're still running up to you, throwing it on your nutsack and booming you down to the floor. They're putting it on the top of cranes. They're putting it in doorways. People are finding more ways to get creative with it. They're throwing it 50 feet across the room and hoping it lands. It's just kind of out of control. And the only thing that I can see, happening in pretty much every game that I'm in is nonstop deaths to trip mine. And it's frustrating, right? There's trip mines on the Hextractor. There's trip mines on the buyback station. There's freaking trip mines everywhere. And it is going to create a lot of disinterested players. And like I told you, once people get used to the current state of the game, it'll get boring still and redundant. Ghost still in a really great spot. I wouldn't change a thing, but it is broken right now. So don't use it because what's happening is your entire body is ghosted except your head. So yes, there are players who can still see you. They can see your head even though you're ghosted, making the limb utterly useless. Paralyzer, we talked about it already. Goated limb. Oh, I love it so much. 2 times, baby. Double up on that paralyzer. It's so reliable. Buzzkiller. The lobbies are now skill-based, and that means there's a lot of teams that are going to be stacking up, giving you the ability to send these things in and just get those third-party kills. Would it be a limb that I put in my loadouts? Not personally, but it has definitely contributed to some frustrating experiences for myself, so I can't write it off completely. Recon. If you're not running Paralyzer, you need to be running Recon. The thing that wins games in this game, other than aim assist, is data. So if you could see people through the walls with Paralyzer and you could see people through the walls with the Recon drone, this is your go-to limb. Slam Fist, I think right now is extremely reliable. I've told you this in my other videos. Great for mobility, great for knocking people off a high ground or ropes, but also just really good at being an opener. Crack a shield with it and finish your target. Would it be a top tier limb? No, I'm going to give it an A, right? If we were to take Phosphor, for example, that's an A+, right? And if we were to take Hookshot, that is an S tier limb. Slam Fist is going to be somewhere around A. Just a flat A limb. Hookshot, best limb in the game. Use it. It's awesome. 4 charges, gets you out of sticky situations, gets you vertical, gets you in the air, gets you out of things. Super reliable. If you're really good with it, cracks shields, pulls targets towards you. Very strong limb. Ripper, it's in the A tier now. Well, I thought I'd never ever hear those words, but it is an A tier limb, similar to the Slam Fist. I would actually argue that the Slam Fist is better than the Ripper, if I were to be quite honest. So we're going to say A- there for the Ripper. Kinetic Shield got a huge buff. Everything bounces off. Bouncing bombers, trip mines, rippers, everything. Would I run it in my loadout? No, but it's only because of preference. I do have a couple players right now that are using this with the Influencer Shaka. Basically, you charge your target, pull the shield out, boom, crack their shields, swap to Influencer, 1 tap. Rinse and repeat that combination, and you are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Javelina, A+. Very strong limb. Recently got an update from the devs that allows this to hit up to 3 targets for 250 damage apiece. This thing is a game changer. Personally, I like to jump off of really high points, find a fight that's happening on top of probably a rooftop, shoot my javelinas down. I get almost 2 players cracked every single time. Amazing opener, and will allow you to swoop in, clean up the competition, and get some really great kills. Probably one of the best limbs in the game right now, for sure. I know it's been on everyone's mind. You're going to ask about it, so let's get it out the way. The maxi gun. It's trash. I really don't know what else to say other than the fact that it takes so long for this thing to actually set up. Like, I want you guys to take a look at this replay here in the video because I think it articulates what I mean. You're already dead. You see? I mean, like, the amount of time it takes for that thing to wind up. If someone's running something like a Tacoma, you're a goner. If they're running an M4, like, you're dead. Or the brand new Maniac Terracon, those weapons shoot so fast, you're a dead man. So I'm not going to recommend this limb to anybody, and I'm going to call out the devs on this one. You put this limb in the game being the biggest piece of shit because your last limb that you put in the game practically broke the community, right? And I think you learned from that experience and you didn't want to have it happen the second time. It wouldn't surprise me if we see this probably getting a buff in the future, but that animation is just atrocious. Bouncing Bombers, still one of the best limbs in the game. I'm going to say it's an A-. A-. I think pairing Bouncing Bombers with something like a Trip Mine is going to be a really great loadout combination, right? Shoot the Bouncing Bomber, and right before detonating the Bouncing Bomber, toss out the limb, detonate, boom, right? So it's like bing, 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 and they're dead. We used to call this the Nova Bomb build. It's still being used by a lot of really top tier players. Is it in any of my loadouts? No, but I've seen it so often that I can't just like write it off. It's going to be a really, really, really viable comp. Moving forward from that, we got the Phosphor Fury. We already kind of talked about this, but I do think the Phosphor Fury is like an A+, right? It may even someday, like it could be an S-, depending on the player. I think with the changes to the buyback stations, right? A lot of you noticed that you can't buy from the sides of the buyback station anymore. You have to be square, dead center, in front of that thing. And because of that, that made Phosphor Fury even stronger than it was before. So it's going to absolutely kill your targets, cause a lot of problems, and again, super top tier limb. Trip Mine, best limb in the game, S tier, automatically. Devs, please fix this shit. I'm so sick of it. Slugger, we don't need to talk about it. Buff it, it's bad, but maybe one day we'll get some changes, and the same could be said for Skunk Paw. Some combinations that I'm personally running is, let's just kind of add some changes. So the first one here is going to be Hookshot, Phosphor Fury, great combination. Next one's going to be Trip Mine, Paralyzer, great combination. The next one is going to be Double Paralyzer, super great combination. Another one that I'm going to recommend is Paralyzer with the Javelinas, great combination. Other than that, Hookshot, Phosphor Fury, probably in my last loadout there to repeat myself, but those are what's working for me. Again, Soldier Backpack, depending on your loadout, has a place in the meta. I think when you're running Hookshot or something like Phosphor Fury, you don't really need low cooldown timers, and you can squeeze a lot of juice out of the Soldier Backpack. Every other build that I'm using is going to have the limb accelerator. It's just too valuable. I know I talked about it earlier with the Javelina being a top tier limb. Guess what? With the limb accelerator, you will have this thing up every 10 to 15 seconds. You can shoot 3 people for 250 damage each every 15 seconds. And what's cool is it's not broken. It's like in a perfect spot, perfectly balanced in the game. I think this update has really made the game interesting. I think it's in a great spot. We just need to fix the damn trip mines. We need to be more transparent and communicate some of the changes surrounding our weapons. And I would actually like to see some of the other weapons come out and shine, right? It's time to maybe consider nerfing things like the Tacoma or the M4. Oh, And before we wrap up the video, ladies and gentlemen, something else the developers did not talk about whatsoever is the marksman rifle changes to the Ichnya. This thing is insane. This gun is actually, it's a freaking laser beam. You think I'm kidding? Go take it for a spin. I would make one change to the current loadout that you see me using right now, and it is to put any combination of a long range scope on it. I like to run the 2.5 and 4x with the heavy barrel, and I do think we definitely want to get rid of this and go ahead and put the noise suppressor because of what I mentioned to you before. It is going to have the advantages of the 1515 and the sound suppression. But this thing, the recoil is they like removed it out of the game. I mean, it is absolutely bonkers good. So good. So before we wrap this video up, I just want to show you this, and then we are going to go ahead and get out of Dodge. But this thing is actually the sleeper gun. No one's using it yet right now, but look at that. Look at that. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Devs. Thank you. Okay. For those of you on mouse and keyboard who have some insane tracking, or on controller that have some insane tracking, make the Ichnya Great again was heard. And they've done exactly that. Public service announcement before I wrap up the video. I got a brand new G7 controller arriving tomorrow. And I am going to switch sides on input. The devs accidentally nerfed aim assist, and I'm not gonna lie, those are some of the greatest, most enjoyable games that I've ever had. My lobbies right now with skill-based matchmaking, these are 2 KD lobbies, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody's an absolute demon. My problem with that is everyone's an absolute demon with 60+% aim assist, and I'm sick of it. The game's competitive integrity is gone. I don't care all the excuses about using ARM, having frames, getting to tweak your visual fidelity, like all this stuff. It just tells me none of those people have ever played any of the battle royales at a high level. They're just dudes who get on every day, throw all their time into a single game, and then they cry and make every excuse of why they can't get better, right? But I'm here to tell you, aim assist is absolutely busted to the point, just like Call of Duty, just like Fortnite, just like Apex Legends, you're probably going to need to switch inputs. And you may have to go through an adjustment period, but you're probably going to become an even better, more top-tier player because of it, right? Think of players like Veckenstein. Think of players like What a Week, who started on mouse and keyboard and made the switch. Think of players like Gunny Gopher, who started on mouse and keyboard and made the switch. We got players over at Dogs starting to make the switch. You got your boy Yo That's KB, who's on controller. Controller is beginning to dominate. You got a Big Blue on controller, right? Like a lot of really top tier players are making the switch. And just like you saw from my other videos, right? People are going from 40 to 50% accuracy to shooting anywhere from 50, 60, and even some games as high as 70%. And it is because of the aim assist. So all these other weirdos out there on controllers saying they needed to compete, more power to you. I don't need it to compete, but I'm going to take that advantage and I'm going to join the wolf pack, baby. And that's it, folks. Thank you for stopping by this month. We'll have another one in a couple weeks once we have a little bit more time to fill things out and spot some more changes. Till next time, peace, love, and happiness. Y'all be easy.